Hello, good morning. Welcome to Business 360. My name is Vladimir Kim. Apologies for coming slightly behind schedule. But part of the conversation this morning on Business 360 will center around Nigerian banks and recapitalization for 2026. Many people are looking at what this might lead to this year. 2026, multiplicity of different policies from the government. Part of those policies for 2026 will also be about the enlisting of Dangote refinery when we talk about Dangote group of companies and the stock exchange and multiplicity of the tax law that's taking place, and part of it also being the recapitalization of the banks. What would happen? How will it affect the banking sector? And we go straight into the thick of the conversation. The countdown to 31st 2026 has officially entered its final stretch, while headlines had claimed that only 19 banks met the mark. The reality on the ground is that as of January 2026, we have seen a surge of compliance, with approximately 22 out of 34 banks now having their licenses secured under the Central Bank of Nigeria CBN new rules. If you're wondering where your money is or if your bank is safe, here's the fact-driven breakdown as we're going to give you, looking at the banking landscape, correcting common misconception along the way. The CBN set a high bar of 500 billion naira for national bank and 200 billion naira for national banks. Crucially, this must be paid up capital. Banks cannot count their safe profits, talking about retained earnings toward this goal. These banks are recapitalized: Access Bank, Zenith Bank, GT Bank, UBA, First Bank and Fidelity. These banks have crossed the 500 billion naira finish line and have secured their international license. FCMB, Wema Bank, Standard Chartered, Citibank, these banks have officially secured their national licenses, with FCMB in the final sprint to hit 500 billion naira to secure its international banking license. Other secured banks, Stanbic IBTC, Sterling Bank, Providus Bank, Globus Bank, and Premium Trust Bank, have all officially cleared the requirements. Majors and downgrades we look at. The story of the 2026 recapitalization also featured majors, acquisition, and downgrades. Unity Bank and Providus Bank are in the final stages of a merger that will create a top 10 Nigerian lender. Similarly, Titan Trust has completed its integration with Union Bank to solidify its capital base. Nova Bank chose a regional license that is 50 billion naira to focus specifically on being a high-end niche player, a healthy business move. Non-interest banking, talking about Islamic banks like Jazz, Taj, and Lotus, have all met their 20 billion naira requirement, proving that niche banking is stronger than ever. For the few banks still in the red zone, the next 80 days will involve final hour majors or private equity injections. Well, for the customer, this means a banking sector that is tougher and more transparent and better funded than ever. And now, my guest joins the conversation, Dr. Francis Andem, a lecturer with Federal University of Technology, Kodabasi Department of Business Management, and he would be looking at all of these regarding the recapitalization in the banking sector and what it means for Nigeria in 2026. Good morning, Dr. Francis Andem.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Francis Andem. So good to have you be part of the show. And now you are
Thank you
following.
for having me on this show.
All right. And now you're following the proceedings that's taking place from the banking sector, the recapitalization from last year. It all started even when we're talking about 2004 exercise under the then CBN Governor Charles Soludo, which directed banks to raise capital to 25 billion naira from 2 billion naira. And that singular directive slashed the number of lenders from 89 to 25. And now we're back at it in 2026. 31st March would be the deadline for most of these banks. What do you make of the recapitalization that's taken place so far?
Okay, the recapitalization policy is usually a policy to reposition the bank to have enough capital to reduce costs that may come into the financial system. So the Central Bank of Nigeria can put it that it is at this point is necessary to recapitalize to increase their assets base to cushion the effect of or whatever advantage you may send the bank. the key benefit of having this kind of policy is that it will certainly increase the lending capacity of the bank, as now the CBN is targeting 14 trillion recapitalization. That's a whole lot of money to give out in the banking sector. And these funds will be able to give the banking sector a boost and strength. Another thing is that the recapitalization can also help the Nigerian policy to achieve $1 trillion GDP in the near future. So the essence of having the recapitalization is to make the industry stronger and more resilient in the near future.
And then let's cast our mind back to 2004. As I said earlier, we saw a multiplicity of banks, about 80 something of them, and then it reduced to about 20 something in that direction. Where then central bank governor Charles Saludo brought about the recapitalization to 89 banks and then reduced to 25 banks, as we stated earlier. And now we're seeing lots of majors. We're seeing some big players. Are we expecting some banks probably to see some closure of some banks?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
I said in 2004, when Charles Saludo, then central bank governor, had brought the idea of recapitalization, there were about 89 banks in that regard, but during the process, it reduced to about 25 banks. And with this recapitalization, are we in a position where we're going to see a reduction in the number? Already there are talks about majors, but are we likely going to see some banks maybe fall by the wayside and not be available because they can't meet the requirements?
Yeah, the truth about it is, let's not take our focus on the reduction of the number of banks that are in the banking sector. Because if you look at the 2004, when we reduced from 89 to 25 banks, the 25 banks became bigger and stronger than the 9 banks put together. So, despite the reduction in number, it does not in any way affect the strength of the banking industry. It's just a matter of maybe 2, 3, 5 people coming together through major because they cannot meet the capitalization, and a little bit of strategic change and restructuring that will help the banking sector and the organizations that are remaining to be stronger and more reliant. I don't think, if you look at the numbers again, 89 to 25 was a very long walk. Looking at the current situation now, I don't think the banks that may not be able to recapitalize may not be, the numbers might not be so much. Yes, I agree that there will be major and takeovers. And this process could affect a few things, but without necessarily affecting the strength of the banking industry.
Okay.
The measures and takeovers are restructuring strategies to increase the strength of the new organization.
From what you've said, yes, from what you said, Dr. Andem, it seems to be a positive one talking about the majors. You're saying that most of these banks, especially the top tier banks, will become stronger. In recent times, we saw the closure of Heritage Bank, and that had affected lots of customers who were banking with that bank. And the amount of money released to them at a peak point was 5 million. Now, recently, we've heard some assets have been sold, which will be able to attend to other people who banked with them at a time who had more money with the bank. So customers will always struggle, but he said it's a good thing. And now let's put side by side the struggles of some of these banks to acquire this money at a capital base, especially those that are the top tier at 500 billion naira. We've listened to every now and then every bank is coming out with some kind of issues, right, for people to buy. Do you think it's been very easy for most of these banks to get to the point of acquiring these licenses and being statutory banks? And put that side by side with the expectations for 2026 after the deadline, where some of these banks would be majors, and afterwards we're going to see some top banks, some would be downgraded from being intercontinental banks to probably maybe regional banks. We've already seen that happening, and national banks.
Hello, Mr. Udike. I didn't get that.
Okay, Dr. Francis, and what I'm asking is, has it been such a struggle? Do you think it has been such a struggle for some of the big banks to be able to meet this target, considering the deadline is just by the corner? Because every now and then we hear one bank or the other, they're trying to sell shares, selling rights, and asking investors to come in. You think it's been an easy task? Especially when you're upgrading to the top tier bank at about a 500 billion naira capital base.
I think the network is a little bit tricky now. I don't know if you can hear me. I can barely hear you from now.
Okay, Dr. Francis, we just try one more time. Let's see if the connections will be better. Can you hear me now?
Hello, Kim. I'm with you.
All right. Now, I was asking about, has it been such a Herculean task for some of these banks to meet that target, considering every now and then the banks are selling shares and rights in order to reach it? The deadline is about the corner. Such a Herculean task, you think, or it's been an easy ride for the big banks to access money, reaching especially the top tier of 500 billion naira capital base? Well, it's been so difficult to have connection with Dr. Francis and them to continue the conversation about the capitalization of the banks. But now we'll go on a quick break, and when we're back, the conversation continues, and we'll look at other topical stories and topics in the world of business. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It's your Business 360, and my name is Vladimir Kim. Sadly, we couldn't continue the conversation with Dr. Francis Andem, who was giving perspective regarding the recapitalization of the banks. But still on the context of recapitalization, insurance sector recapitalization is next we're looking at. The insurance sector has also been strengthened with recapitalization set for July 2026, with roughly 7 months to the July 2026 deadline set by the Nigerian Insurance Industry Reform Act NIRA 2025. Recapitalization activities are picking up across the sector. Recently, Lasaka Assurance PLC announced its shareholders have overwhelmingly approved the plan to increase the company's minimum share capital from about 11.08 billion naira to 36.08 billion naira. This will be executed via a combination of rights issues and private placements. The move is strategically aimed at exceeding the revised statutory minimum of 25 billion naira for composure insurance under NIRA 2025 to strengthen its underwriting capacity, solvency margins, and competitive positioning in a tightening market. In addition to Lasoko Assurance, 5 other insurers, including Sunu Assurances, Sovereign Trust Insurance, Linkage Assurance, Guinea Insurance, Verital Capital Insurance, and International Energy Insurance, have disclosed on the Nigerian Exchange NGX and that their board have approved plans to raise about 70 billion naira collectively. These funds are to be secured through rights issues, private placements, or public offers pending shareholders' approval. Checks showed that most composite insurance are also above the 25 billion naira regulatory capital requirement. ICO Insurance leads with a capital buffer of 40.77 billion naira, followed by Cornerstone Insurance with surpluses of 36.65 billion naira. And now to global economic standings around the world as China locks record trade surplus in 2025. China posted a record of $1.2 trillion trade surplus in 2025, driven by a 5.5% rise in exports while imports stagnated. In December alone, the surplus reached $114.1 billion as export growth continued to outpace imports, with manufacturers increasingly redirecting shipment towards non-U.S. market in response to Trump-era tariffs. And now to the markets, looking at the state of the Naira. The Naira on Tuesday recorded two consecutive appreciation against the United States dollar at the official foreign exchange markets. The Central Bank of Nigeria's data showed that the Naira strengthened on Tuesday to 1,419.66 Naira per dollar, up from 1,423.17 Naira traded last week, Friday. This means that in the last 48 hours, the Naira gained 3 Naira 51 kobo against the dollar at the official foreign exchange market. Meanwhile, at the black market, the Naira remained stable at 1,490 Naira per dollar, the same exchange rate recorded on Monday. This comes as Nigeria's foreign reserves rose to $45.74 billion as of January 12, 2026, up from $45.67 billion recorded last week, according to the Apex Bank's data. And now to the market as we set to close. The US dollar against the Naira. Afterwards, we'll look at the state of the USD market and the state of the crypto market. A US dollar against the Naira price level stands at 1,423 US Naira to the US dollar. The dollar gaining 1.135 points over the Naira. The US dollar against the South African rand, the rand being a little downward against the US dollar, negative 0.57%. And now let's look at the state of the Euro USD market. A Euro USD market indicates price level at $1.16 per euro. The euro gaining 0.07% over the US dollar, but volatility has been a concern in this market from yesterday even. A pound against the US dollar, the pound gaining 0.26% over the US dollar at $1.34. It's the story at the cryptocurrency market this morning. A crypto market will always come with the likes of Bitcoin. Bitcoin falling 347 points this morning, a negative 0.36%. The price of one Bitcoin at 94,989 US dollar. Ether gaining a 5.19% on a weekly basis, but a 0.22% appreciation. Binance falling, Cardano falling, Solana falling, Ripple falling, Polkadot falling. And now to the markets. The commodity market, the price of the energy market. Energy market indicates the price of crude oil. Crude oil this morning, US crude, mostly known as WTI, the West Texas Intermediate crude, a price level standing at $60 US per barrel, falling by a 0.621 point, a negative 1.02% decline. Brent, which represents Nigeria's price benchmark, a price level stands at $64 US per barrel, dropping 0.66 points, a negative 1.01%. Natural gas, gasoline, heating oil, coal price gaining just slightly this morning, but the bulk of the energy market seems to be negative in the morning market. It's a bulk of where we have to stop when it has to do with business this morning. Thank you for being a part of it. My name is Blyden Ukem. Thank you for watching.